If you've ever tried to get a surfboard to the beach, you know that they frequently don't fit in cars very well, and they're a pain to carry on a bike. No matter how you hold them, they tend to catch the wind and, wrench your arm out. So this is a problem that I was facing about a year ago, and I built a cart for my surfboard to tow behind my bike. You can see that one of these surfboards back here actually has wheels, which is sort of weird for a surfboard. So today I'm going to be building a new one of these carts, and I'm going to be filming it so that I can show you how to build your own.
Today's project will be a slightly different design from my first model, and anybody should be able to make one with a pretty limited set of tools. The main components are a steel strut to hold the wheels in the back, a lightweight, flexible frame made from PVC pipe, and a steel trailer hitch of sorts for attaching to the bike. The first thing you'll need is an old bike or an old pair of bike wheels. Hopefully you can get these for cheap or even for free from a bike shop or from a friend who's getting rid of a bike. My roommate actually offered me this bike for 3 tacos once. Beyond that, you'll need one piece of steel to act as an axle frame, and 3 10-foot sticks of 1/2-inch PVC. I love this stuff because it's ridiculously cheap and easy to form quickly. You can also get 1/2-inch foam insulation that fits over the pipe to prevent your board from getting scuffed by the frame itself. In terms of fasteners, 1 1/4-inch drywall screws, a single 1/4-inch bolt to act as a hitch, some paracord, and some hose clamps are really all you'll need. You are going to want to have a well-dimensioned picture of your surfboard so that you can build the frame to fit it. Of course, it's best to have your board with you, but since I can't fit my board in the car, I'm stuck with the estimates that I made before I left. I decided to start with the plastic frame. PVC is not a very strong material, but it's cheap and easy to work with, and it's flexible enough that it's likely to bounce off of bumps in the road and not hurt the board. I'm going to use 2 long pieces of PVC with multiple bends in them to support both sides of the board, with uprights tall enough to carry multiple boards at once. For my wave storm, I use this set of measurements, but you'll probably have to modify these plans in order to fit whatever board or boards you want to carry. One of the fastest and most satisfying ways to quickly rough out a shape in PVC is to soften the pipe with a heat gun and bend it by hand. Warning that it is a heat gun, so it's well hot enough to burn you, and if you overcook the plastic it'll release some pretty nasty stuff like chlorine, so it's absolutely a process for a well-ventilated area. That said, what you want to do is slowly heat the PVC, keeping the part moving relative to the heat gun at all times so that you don't burn the plastic. Continue until the plastic is visibly soft. The end of the pipe may actually be sort of flopping back and forth. Then you can make your bend. For sharp angles, the pipe will actually want to crease, and you want to try to avoid that because, of course, it's stronger if you don't let it crease and you have sort of a smooth curve in the pipe. So you can see I'm trying to prevent that here by pressing in on the sides of the bend with a block of wood and then eventually clamping it with a pair of pliers. Once each bend is made, you just have to wait for it to cool. Then you got a bent piece of PVC that's almost as strong as the original, but in whatever shape you want. I made both main pieces of PVC here at once in order to keep it symmetric, because there's a lot of bends that I needed to keep track of. The back uprights, a triangle to the center, and then the front uprights to corral the board. The centerpiece that attaches to the bike itself can just be a straight stick of PVC, but based on the performance of my previous cart, I decided to flatten the end where I'll need to make a trailer hitch, and I put a slight bend in it so that the pipe won't brush against my back wheel when it's heavily loaded down. Now I left myself a bit of a problem here. When you line all of this up, the back uprights are way too far apart. I wanted that to measure just an inch wider than the board so that it had a little bit of room for the foam. In order to solidify this dimension, I added one extra strut of PVC in the back that I measured very carefully and lined up the angles so that they would just work. This left both of the front uprights bent at weird angles, so after screwing it all together, I went back with the heat gun to relieve some of the strain at the center intersection. As a final touch, I also drilled a bunch of holes for paracord in the uprights. I'll be using those to tie down the boards later. At this point, the frame is complete. It just needs wheels and a trailer hitch, both of which really should be made from steel instead of, PVC plastic. I made the first iteration's wheel support out of aluminum and it fell apart very quickly. Steel is absolutely what you want for this application. You can cut steel with a hacksaw, but it's slow and I'm lazy, so I used a grinder. Your results may vary. I cut a length of steel that was 2 inches longer than I wanted the distance between the wheels, so that gives me 1 inch on both ends to fold up and drill holes in so that the wheels can attach. For 1/8 inch steel bar, the caveman approach is both the easiest and most effective way to bend it. Just clamp it down in a vise and hit it with a big hammer until you get a 90-degree bend. Once you figure out how large the holes need to be, mark the center of the bent flaps and drill the holes with a small bit, slowly expanding the holes. You can also use a hand drill for this. But the most important thing is that you have some sort of cooling fluid for drilling through steel, and the work is very securely held in a clamp or vise. The trailer hitch is the exact same process. Cut, bend, and drill, but it only needs to be a small L of steel with a slightly larger than a 1/4 inch hole through it. We'll see how that actually attaches to the bike and to the cart in a minute. Now here's the optional part. If you have access to a welder, or access to a friend with a welder, I'd highly recommend adding 2 extra pieces of steel to strengthen this angle in the steel frame. I do not claim to be a welder. I claim to be able to stick 2 pieces of metal together once every 6 months when I need to. These welds are pretty hideous, but they should hold for the purposes of a surfboard cart. It's not under great load. A spray and a half of clear coat to slow down the rust on the steel pieces, and they are also complete. So now we have wheels, an axle, a frame, some paracord, a hitch, and a bike. So it's time to put all of these components together. After bolting on the wheels, you can use hose clamps to attach the metal axle to the plastic frame. Likewise, the hitch can be attached to the bike with a single hose clamp, and then a bolt through the front PVC arm completes the assembly and results in this nice, quick, removable hitch. When you're riding around, the bolt is held in the hitch just under its own weight and the weight of the surfboards that it's carrying, but it's very easy to just lift this up and remove it from the bike. Now, as a finishing touch, this bent up plastic is not going to do a great job of holding the board by itself, especially because I designed all of this to be slightly oversized. So I'm adding a bunch of pipe insulation as cushion to sort of hold onto the board more nicely. And then I'm adding some paracord between these uprights. Once you have foam on the base of the cart and the uprights, the board is pretty well constrained side to side, but it still could just sort of slide out the end while you were riding along, which would be a pretty bad thing. So the paracord that I have in between the uprights here actually loops around the fins of the surfboard at the bottom and stops the surfboards from sliding out and ending up on the street. Now that this is all together, it's a pretty easy job to slide a surfboard in and slide a surfboard out, and it should be held securely enough that you can bike around with it. So I'll be testing out my new surfboard cart as soon as there are waves, which unfortunately this weekend there are not. But yeah, I'll see you at the beach. God, that is so much easier than the first model.